Imagine a regular morning in New York City.
The streets are alive with the usual chaos, the endless honking of cars, the rush of yellow taxis, and the hustle of commuters pouring out of subway stations. But today something unusual is about to happen. James, a 34-year-old Uber driver, wakes up in his small apartment in Brooklyn, completely unaware that his life is about to change forever. For the last 5 years, James has been working long hours as a driver, juggling late-night rides and early morning pickups just to make ends meet. His income, though steady, has always been limited by the same problems every driver faces: rising fuel costs, unpredictable maintenance, and the constant pressure of keeping his car running efficiently. But James is no ordinary driver. He's curious. He's always been fascinated by new technology. So when he first heard rumors about a revolutionary electric vehicle from Africa that could charge itself while driving, he didn't believe it at first. It sounded too good to be true, like one of those clickbait headlines people scroll past on social media. A self-charging car? Come on, he muttered to himself. But the more he read, the more he realized that something incredible might actually be happening. This wasn't just another EV from Tesla or Rivian or some Silicon Valley startup. This was from Africa, a place most Americans never associate with futuristic car technology. And yet, the story spreading across the internet claimed that this new car could drive endlessly without ever needing to plug in or stop at a charging station. It used solar integration, kinetic recovery systems, and advanced battery chemistry to sustain itself in ways traditional engineers had once said were impossible.
James shrugged at first.
But then an email landed in his inbox. It wasn't spam, it wasn't a scam. It was a legitimate invitation from a small African startup working with international testers. They wanted him, an ordinary Uber driver in America, to be among the first in the United States to try out their car in real-world conditions. His first reaction was disbelief. Why him? Why not a YouTuber with millions of subscribers or a professional automotive journalist? But then he realized that maybe that was the point. They wanted to prove this car wasn't just for tech reviewers or the wealthy elite. It was for real working-class people like him. So a week later, James stood in front of JFK Airport's cargo terminal, waiting for a container that had just been flown in from Lagos, Nigeria. The shipping company carefully opened it, and there it was, a sleek, futuristic car unlike anything he'd ever seen. The design was modern but not flashy, with aerodynamic curves that gave it an almost spaceship-like presence. The matte black finish glistened under the New York sun, and a subtle green emblem at the front proudly announced the name of the car, the Umoja 1, Umoja meaning unity in Swahili. As James ran his hands along the body, he felt a strange mixture of excitement and disbelief. He didn't fully understand how this car worked, but he knew it represented something powerful. He signed the paperwork, got inside, and immediately noticed how different the interior felt. The dashboard wasn't cluttered with buttons. Instead, it was clean, minimalist, and filled with natural textures: wood, bamboo, and recycled materials. The central display lit up, greeting him with the words, "Welcome, Driver James." His heart skipped. This wasn't just a car. It was an intelligent companion. The startup had already connected the car to Uber's platform, so all James had to do was log into his account and hit go online. For the first time in his life, he was about to drive an Uber without worrying about gas prices or charging stops. The real test was about to begin. The first ride request popped up almost instantly, a passenger from Williamsburg heading to Manhattan. James accepted, navigated the streets smoothly, and quickly realized something incredible: the battery percentage on the display wasn't going down. In fact, after 20 minutes of driving, it had gone up by 1%. His jaw dropped. Normally, with his old Toyota hybrid, he would be watching the gas tank dip lower every few miles. But here he was, cruising through traffic, and the car was somehow charging itself. The passenger, a young woman named Sarah, couldn't help but notice the futuristic design. "This doesn't look like any Uber I've been in before," she said, her voice filled with curiosity. James grinned and replied, "That's because it's not. You're sitting in the world's first self-charging car from Africa." She laughed at first, thinking he was joking, but as the ride continued and she glanced at the dashboard showing energy regeneration in real time, her laughter turned into stunned silence. By the time they reached Manhattan, she was taking photos and videos to share on her social media. "This is insane," she whispered. "People are not going to believe this." Word spread quickly. Every passenger James picked up that day asked the same questions. How does it work? Is it really self-charging? Where can I buy one? And James, though not an engineer, became an ambassador for this African innovation. He explained the basics, that the car used solar panels seamlessly integrated into its roof and body, combined with advanced regenerative braking and motion energy recovery, all tied together with an AI-powered battery management system. The result was a car that could practically sustain itself under normal urban driving conditions. But the real shock came at the end of the first week. James sat down to calculate his earnings. Normally, with his hybrid, he spent nearly $250 a week on fuel and another $50 to $70 on maintenance like oil changes, tire wear, and random repairs. That ate into his profits significantly. But with the Umoja One, his fuel cost was zero. His maintenance cost was zero for the week. And because the car required no downtime for charging or refueling, he was able to drive longer shifts without interruption. The result? His earnings skyrocketed. He had made nearly $1,200 in 1 week, almost double his usual take-home. James stared at the numbers in disbelief. This wasn't just a car. This was freedom. It was a weapon against the financial struggles that had weighed him down for years. For the first time, he felt like he was truly in control of his future. But he also knew that what he was experiencing was bigger than him. This car had the potential to disrupt the entire rideshare industry, the entire automotive market, maybe even the entire energy system. And that's when the phone calls started coming. First, it was curious journalists asking for interviews. Then it was tech bloggers, YouTubers, and influencers wanting to ride along. But soon, the bigger players got involved. Representatives from oil companies, traditional car manufacturers, even lobbyists started sniffing around, trying to figure out what was happening. Some asked innocent questions, others offered money, and a few delivered not-so-subtle warnings. James realized he was at the center of a storm. What started as an opportunity to test a new car had turned into a battle between innovation and the old powers that wanted to keep things the same. The second week felt surreal. Every time James stepped into the Umoja One, he had to remind himself this wasn't a dream. The car had quickly become more than just a vehicle. It felt alive, like a partner sharing his ambition. It spoke in a calm, neutral voice whenever he needed directions, and it updated him on his driving efficiency in real time. Driver James, it would say, you have recovered enough kinetic energy to power the next 2 rides. James couldn't help but chuckle each time. This was something his old Toyota could never do. On Monday morning, he accepted a long ride from Brooklyn to Newark Airport. That usually meant at least an hour on the road, often with heavy traffic along the way. In a gas car, James would already be thinking about how much fuel he was burning. But now, he was noticing the opposite. Each time he slowed down, each time he hit the brakes, the battery percentage ticked up. By the time he dropped off the passenger at Terminal B, the car had more charge than when he started. The passenger, a businessman heading to California, couldn't believe what he was seeing. He leaned forward and asked, "Wait a second. This thing's not plugged in anywhere? It just powers itself." James nodded proudly. "That's right.
Straight out of Africa.
And I haven't spent a dime on fuel all week." The man shook his head in disbelief, pulling out his phone. "I'm in the auto industry. If what you're telling me is true, this is going to destroy half the companies I know." He typed furiously into his notes app before sprinting into the terminal. By Wednesday, James's Uber passenger rating had climbed higher than ever. Riders weren't just happy with his service, they were excited to be part of history. Some tipped extra just for the chance to post photos of themselves in the African miracle car. A college student even live-streamed her ride, and within minutes, thousands of viewers were asking questions, dropping comments like, "Is this real? Where do I get one?" And this could kill Tesla overnight. But with attention came challenges. Late one night, as James parked near Times Square to rest, a man in a suit approached him. He introduced himself as a representative from a major energy company, though he refused to say which one. "You're making waves," the man said with a thin smile. "But you should know, things like this don't usually last in America. Too many people's pockets are at stake." He slid a card through the open window.
"Give me a call.
"We'd like to make you an offer." James felt a chill down his spine. He didn't take the card. He simply rolled up the window and drove off, heart pounding. Despite the threats, The money kept rolling in. By the end of week 2, James calculated his total, $2,450. Nearly triple what he used to make. He hadn't spent a single dollar on gas, oil, or charging stations. The only money he spent that week was on food and coffee. He realized he was on track to clear over $10,000 in a single month, something he'd never imagined possible as an Uber driver. And then came the viral video. One of his passengers, a popular TikTok creator, filmed a short clip during her ride, showing the battery regenerating while they drove. She added a caption, "Forget Tesla.
Africa juste built the future."
Within 24 hours, the video had over 20 million views. Suddenly, James's face was everywhere. News outlets replayed the clip, YouTubers analyzed it frame by frame, and social media exploded with debates. Some people were convinced it was fake, a marketing stunt. Others called it the biggest technological leap of the decade. Journalists began camping outside his apartment building. Paparazzi followed him as he drove passengers. Uber itself contacted him, asking if he'd be open to a formal partnership with the African startup. And then the big one, CNN requested a live interview.
Sitting under the bright studio lights, James felt nerveux.
He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a businessman. He was just a driver. But when the anchor asked him what it was like to operate a car that charged itself, he answered from the heart. "It's freedom," he said simply. "I don't wake up worrying about gas prices anymore. I don't lose hours at charging stations.
I don't bleed money en maintenance.
I drive, I earn, and the car takes care of itself. This changes everything for people like me." The interview went viral. Overnight, James wasn't just an Uber driver, he was a symbol of how innovation from Africa could shake the world.